Hi, I'm Betsy Rosenberg, back with you for another edition of Green TV. This segment we're calling Meet the Solutionaries, as it sounds. I'm going to have the privilege, as I have been for many years on the radio, now in television, online TV as it is, of interviewing the people who I think are the most interesting, important, innovative, visionary leaders in their field. And one of my favorite things to do is to interview filmmakers and authors and artists of all kinds. So it's not just the activists or the clean tech people or the green biz people. There's so much to talk about, as anyone who has been covering the green scene knows. But the people who had a vision early on, especially, and then carried that through, made a full documentary that is not only comprehensive, but very, very impactful. Those are sort of my favorite interviews. So that is a way of a bit of a prelude to introduce my friend. We became friends after I was lucky enough to screen her film called Normal is Over. I am so excited to introduce you to Renee Scheltema. Just a brief background and then a little bit about what Normal is about. And of course, we're going to be talking about it and of course, tell you where you can watch it. I highly recommend it. Truly, highly, really one of the best documentaries on the topic of what's happening to our planet and solutions that I have seen. And I've probably seen about 100. So without any further delay, Renee Scheltema, welcome to Green TV. You're one of our early guests, so honored to have you. And Renee's background briefly is in broadcast news, as was mine. Hers was in television, mine radio. And you went off to, you're a photographer as well, to make some shorter films for Dutch television. And we're going to hear from you straight from the horse's mouth what prompted you or what got you to imagine what became Normal is Over, which is, I should mention, an award-winning doc about humanity's wisest response to climate change, but not just climate change, species extinction, resource depletion, income inequality, they're all related, and the link between all these issues, including the COVID-19 link, which is new since, of course, the film came out. It's all a symptom of ecosystems degrading and actually even in collapse. So this is an independent film. You'll hear just how independent it was, how ambitious it is, and how much of a globe-trotting journey you and your daughter went on, Renee. So thank you so much for being here, and take us back. What made you decide that whatever you had been producing at the time wasn't quite expressing enough in terms of content, comprehensiveness, and perhaps urgency?
Well, thank you so much, Betsy, for having me on your show. I'm really honored. It's fun. Yes, I've actually always made documentaries for Dutch television or even other television stations. And when I wanted to start making Normal is Over, Dutch television said to me, Renee, you want to make a film about everything. That's impossible. Good luck. And so I decided to go it alone as a one-woman crew, and both my daughters had just left home, and I noticed that they were not reading newspapers anymore, that they got their news from social media, that their friends knew something was wrong but didn't know exactly what was wrong. So, you know, they're all busy with symptoms but didn't really connect the dots. And I've been around for long enough to be able to connect the dots. I assume, I guess you have to be a bit opinionated in order to start a film like this. And so I bought a new camera, and I decided, okay, let me just make this film basically for the friends of my children, because my children had been already informed by me, of course, and for the millennial generation.
Whether they want to be or not, I have the same thing with my daughter. Sometimes it's like, enough, Mom, we really want to just grow up without knowing that the world is coming to an end.
Yeah, well, I
every day
really
hearing
didn't
about it every day. Yes, go ahead, sorry.
The film is really not about telling them the world is coming to an end. It's really explaining why we are where we are, and then offering solutions on many different levels, from supranational to local solutions. That's really what I intended to do. And so I spent a year as a one-woman crew. I carried over 40 kilos around in my backpack, and at the check-in, I pretended I was very light. Meanwhile, I had 15 kilo in my backpack and some batteries in my pockets. But I managed to travel with my tripod and sound equipment and camera for a year, searching for solutions and also interviewing experts in the various fields, like Paul Gilding, the ex-CEO of Greenpeace International, Vandana Shiva in India, Charles Eisenstein, who after that became very popular, Professor Michael Mann, who is now also, I think, very popular. Many different people that I managed to actually be accepted in their homes. I interviewed probably 30 people, but only around 10 ended up in the film. And after that year, when I came back with about 200, it felt like 200 years, 200 hours of footage. My youngest daughter insisted that she would help me during the editing. So she transcribed all the interviews with the experts. She made all the animations. And I edited for about 4 years with her, without anyone else seeing the film. And then I edited it down, the 200 hours down to 10 hours. And I really thought those 10 hours were best. It was quiet and everybody explained, and Al Gore's a funny clip of 7 minutes how I got to meet him. And only in the final film, he's only like there for not even 30 seconds. But
that's okay.
and then I rented out my house. I got a loan, and then I was able to hire an editor who could help me edit down the 10 hours, because I would never be able to financially afford an editor for the 200 hours. And then we spent another year editing it down to normal is over. This was before COVID. And of course now normal is even more over, obviously. But yeah, that was the process. And then unfortunately, maybe I should mention it now, 2 days after the film was completed, my dear daughter died in a car crash. And so instead of us happy go out and get the world out, film out into the world, I fell in a dark, deep hole. Meanwhile, some film festivals accepted the film, and I decided to just accept the invitation to screen it, mostly worldwide, really. And now it's been 5 years, and I'm sort of starting to learn to walk around with a broken heart. Yeah.
So sorry, and that is the worst possible thing to experience. But I've also had some tragedies in my life, and I know how that is absolutely the truth. But I also know that that's part of what fuels me. When we have experienced death, especially of a close loved one, everyone does, but when you, especially if it happens in a way it should never, or too young or too close, God forbid, a parent and child, you know how final death is, which of course is obvious, but when you really feel it at a visceral level and you walk around with that every day and you see signs of our planet dying and nature dying and people not paying attention to it, and you see it, the house burning off in the distance, not too far off, and people in between you and that fire are just chit-chatting and you just want to scream. So can relate to that sense of urgency, and who could blame you for taking time to grieve? Of course you must. And one of the many things that I so admire about you and this film is, relatively early on, you called your movie Normal is Over. And of course now most of the world is just waking up to that frightening, sad, scary reality. But tell us, in what ways is normal over, even though it's probably more obvious than when you even, envisioned the film and titled it in the last 5 years, what we've seen?
Yeah. So the film is really about not about climate change, but about system change, and so the bottom line of what we're doing is really not covered in the media. That this is another thing. I mean, the media used to be quite independent and investigative, and today it looks as if the media are more into profits and growth, and for the handful of men mostly who own the media and the mass media, and people do not really realize this, but it's, if you investigate it, it's really bad. Really, a handful of men own the media, and they make their profits by giving people superficial, sensational,
distracting
news
content. Yes, that distracts, right?
Yeah, so if there's climate change, but they won't mention climate change. They just mention the people who die in a fire. So there's a flooding in Bangladesh. They don't mention the fact that they've been cutting the trees in the Himalayas. They just mention the few people who died in the flooding. They're very and because that makes money, and that is, I find that super irritating.
Of course, I mean, I've lived it, and it's changing now, just recently, but still, even though they feel like they're covering it, they're mentioning it, maybe a story here and there, but it's this deep, and oh, there's my hurt arm. It's superficial, it's not sustaining, it's not in depth enough, it's not comprehensive enough, but they're starting to change under pressure, mostly from activists, frankly, and you can't ignore Mother Nature forever. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's been known since 1972, since we went to the moon. When we looked at, suddenly realized that we only have one little beautiful planet and we need to take care of it. And that's when the WWF and all those organizations it came into being. But that's also when the Club of Rome, which is a group of European scientists, got together and made some predictions and saying that, you know, if we have endless economic growth on a finite planet, we will end up in a crisis. They predicted this over 50 years ago. So that's nothing new. They were just ridiculed at the time. And they're still not being taken seriously. And there's still no discussion about our financial economic system, which is really the driver of all this ecological damage. And like today, we even have a Nobel Prize in economics. And it's a behavioral science. It's not a science. We don't have a Nobel Prize in sociology or psychology or anthropology, but we do have one in economics, as if it's cast in stone. That, you know, demand and the free market. That is the one and only way to go forward, which obviously isn't, because when you begin to understand that under capitalism, a forest has no value until it's cut down, you understand the root of our ecological crisis, which I really think is our financial economic system, which is broken.
Yeah. Most definitely, and you connect all those dots and you delve into a lot of the drivers, many of them hidden drivers behind the destruction that we're witnessing. So a very ambitious film, but you went to how many countries, I don't know, but globe-trotting is not an exaggeration. But the editing in this film, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you'd think that the best editor in the world had done it, and you are, and you and your daughter. I mean, maybe I'm partial now, but when I saw the film before I knew you, I was just so impressed. A lot of quick edits, just beautiful cinematography again, and such rich, you know, in-depth content, and just in terms of the scope. I can't urge people enough to see it, because I can tell just in the short conversation we're going to have, we're only going to skim the surface, but it's a film that was ahead of its time, that must be seen. Tell us what kind of screenings have you had other than COVID, you know, canceling quite a few? And what's the reaction? What is the reaction? Am I the only one who gets awful clumped when I see it and cry?
No. I'm still. Thank you. Still, thank you for that. No, still today I get emails from people who love it and who are and who tell me it should be on Netflix and it should be on American TV and all these things. And of course, I'm an artist. I'm not a commercial person, so I wouldn't know how to get it on Netflix or on American TV or PBS for that matter. But I do get emails from people who say, why is this not on PBS and why is this not on Netflix? Still today, because the message is just as relevant as it was 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Unfortunately.
More so. And maybe it's time to hit Netflix up again, because they've been quoted now as saying that there is demand for content about our planet and sustainability and climate change. So, you know, it's not at all dated. Again, it's just more relevant than ever. So maybe we should talk about that after, because I'd love to help.
They just go to normalisover.org and go to the contact information, and then they can find me.
Okay, so we're kind of skimming over and going around the meat of this film, which I guess because it is so dense in a positive way, it's hard to even, how would you describe this film? Because I'm almost at a loss when all the scenes and the locations and the issues and the people you interviewed flash before me. It's such a kaleidoscope of everything we need to know.
yeah. So you know, I'm a criminologist, and so I am a criminologist not because I worked with it. I enjoyed the study because you get sociology and psychology and economics and statistics, and so I had microeconomics and macroeconomics, and I was taught that, you know, we should always grow, and that we should have endless economic growth, and that will make us all happy. And this is outdated, stupid story, because we create money out of nothing. That is another problem. So we creating debt. Banks, when banks make a loan, they create money out of nothing, and then they want more back in some way or another. So and with COVID on top, we have a huge mountain of debt. And we probably will get inflation, I don't know, but I'm not an economist. All I know is that if the global world, except Bhutan, who has what do they have? Gross national happiness. Yes, gross national happiness, which is, of course, yeah, we don't need to grow. We can, like in nature, everything grows and then decays. But we as humanity think we can grow and have more and more stuff and more things and more houses and cars and better, and everything always gets better, which is also not the natural thing. We don't always get better. we don't always get more stuff. You know, we need to really sync with nature, and in the process of this economic system, we've lost contact with nature, especially in the West, more so in Europe and the United States, and less so in the developing countries. But now, of course, they also are adopting this capitalistic economic growth system. Even China is, and that is I think the crux of the problem, because of that we create more stuff, and we create stuff out of nothing. And if just the whole idea, I'm just an example, the idea that everybody should be able to drive an electric car in 2050 is absurd, because where are the resources going to come from? Are we going to really dig the Congo up so that there's no people can live there anymore? It is just one big mine pit. We really need to upcycle and downside and have no growth or degrowth, and be happy with what we have. Because this, yeah, we can't have more stuff forever. It's gross.
And I have a couple of different directions, but just since you mentioned EVs, and our founder, John Lake, is a big EV proponent, as we all are. But are you referring to the problems with the resources, the materials that are needed, natural resources to?
Yes, the lithium and the cobalt. Yeah, you know, to create all these cars for everyone, it's going to be impossible. We're going to run out of resources, and so because of this system we have, because of the pollution we create, climate change, because we need all these resources, we cut down the forests in order to mine whatever is underneath, and we create species extinction because of industrial agriculture. We poison the earth, then it rains, and then the water, we acidify the oceans because the poisonous water runs into the oceans. We with overfish because everybody needs to eat tuna for some reason. We don't eat locally and seasonally anymore, so we're overfishing the oceans. And then the same system creates a huge difference in wealth. And I mean, the rich are getting richer, and it's been going on for decennia, for a long time. But now it's becoming very obvious that only a handful of people have as much wealth as the rest of the world.
Yes, income inequality is a big issue, but you also get into the actual currency. Like, we need a new currency system. Sorry,
yes, and I'm not talking about Bitcoin, because I think Bitcoin is really there for speculation, and it has no added value,
and it's not good for the planet. Uses tons of energy.
And it costs a lot of energy, and it's really it's a dumb speculation for people with this mindset of always wanting more money, whether it's crypto or money.
Get rich quick.
Without any added value. They sit behind the computers wanting more. It's it's really about a change in consciousness and a change in philosophy, and it should start at schools, that we we need to live. And I can see that a lot of clever young people in the younger generation are done with this system, and they leave the cities, they go into nature, and they start getting their hands dirty, and they start creating this parallel universe, because they can see a collapse is on its way. I mean, we're already slowly collapsing, but if it's because it's slow, a lot of people don't realize it or do not want to realize it. But we are on a way to collapse, and a lot of young smart kids can feel it. And I can see that they're going off in nature and try and live off the grid and learn to grow veggies again, very basic stuff, in order to survive this coming collapse.
Yeah. And it's like the frog in the water that progressively gets water in the pot of water. We all remember from Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth.
Yeah.
So slowly the frog doesn't realize it till all of a sudden it's too late. But unlike the frog, we don't have any place we can even jump off to. Last time I checked, this is still the only inhabitable planet, even though, or habitable, yeah, because we have the biggest billionaires in the world exploring other planets as if they've given up, or they've gotten a memo that, this don't spend any money and resources and efforts trying to save planet Earth, it's too late, almost as if. But we won't go there because we have just a few more minutes and I want to talk about it. So really your film and the title, Normal is Over, isn't it saying capitalism as we've known it is dead? It's not the only problem, but it seems like it's what we value. How do we love our kids, country, and planet? How do we show that? And do you think, just personally, that the film is so, and others like it, frankly, makes so much sense, and you can see solutions within reach. If only we can connect the dots for, everybody, all 8 billion people on the planet, or the powers that be, or just more people. Even 5 years on since your film came out, do you feel realistically hopeful and optimistic at all that we can make this huge shift now that people are waking up to smell the carbon?
Well, it is 12:05. It's no longer 5 minutes before 12. And we really need to change our ways yesterday. And if we were all going to change our ways now, it would be fine. But I do worry once in a while. Yes, there are moments that I become despondent, because there's really, and then it's not that they all sit, like 3,000 to 6,000 people, mostly men in the world, who own the planet, who own most of the money, who have the power, who are more powerful than the national governments, and they are businesses, and they are making profits, and
it's not enough. Somehow it's not enough.
No, somehow it's never enough, because that's what the system is about, and these people have so much power. And the rest of the 9 billion people have zero power, so it seems. So it's a very, it's a very unequal situation. And then sometimes I really wish for a stronger revolutionary action. Everyone I speak understands the problem we have, whether it's a farmer or a friend or a professor or a teenager. They all understand the predicament that we're in, but somehow we can't get it together.
Yeah, indigenous people, you spoke to some of them.
Indigenous people, of course, they've been wise forever. But somehow we, the majority who understands what's going on, cannot get it together to change. And so the only solution is to, rather than, some people like kicking Shell and BP and fighting the system. And I really get the most satisfaction out of joining like-minded people and creating this parallel green universe, where we speak to like-minded people and learn how to help each other into a more balanced way of living for our grandchildren.
Know them. We at least are trying to turn things around for them.
yeah, because it's fun to work with like-minded people and to connect with them and to see what they're doing. And to one of good friend in South Africa, she's bought a piece of land, and it is organic veggies and a fruit forest, and everyone can just come there and pick their fruit, and they can stay over and eat there. And she's really practicing what she preaches, and it's beautiful to see. And the community that is there is really warm and fantastic, and has nothing to do with black and white. It's nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, has nothing to do with COVID. It just, it only has to do with our connection to nature, which I think is the bottom line. Because like the media again are, it's almost as if they were happy to avoid this whole debt economic growth problem by focusing all their attention on this. I find it a very unimportant issue, which is COVID, because 99.99% people survive. But it's been made into a huge pandemic. And I'm not so sure, but it feels to me a distraction from the real issue. And the real issue is that we're destroying the planet, that the species are going extinct, that the sea levels are rising, that the wealthy are so well. I mean, Jeff Bezos, did he really have to go to fly in the universe and spend 3 minutes there for I don't know how many 30 million, which he could have given to plant trees or do something relevant?
Well, and COVID is a real thing, and the pandemic got covered like the true emergency it is, but nothing. I mean, it just dwarfs climate change and all our ecological news that doesn't get covered. And what really didn't happen, I talk about this a lot, but the big takeaway should be nature's in charge. We are intimately and intricately connected. We're all one. And if we don't learn the lessons of this huge pandemic, and for people who don't care about climate or conservation, who wants more COVID, who wants more pandemics? But that's exactly what the experts, Dr. Peter Daszak of EcoHealth Alliance has actually been quoted as saying, is so long as we have, we continue to destroy the environment and we have a sick planet, we're going to have more sick people. There's millions more viruses out there. But that message didn't get conveyed, maybe not surprisingly, by mainstream media enough. And it's still, did it happen in a lab or not? In a wild, meat market or a lab? Well, how about the fact that humans are encroaching into habitats of wildlife, and then wildlife gets closer to each other, is forced to live near each other, different species, and then us. And that's like the big aha that still people haven't learned, which tells us we're destined to keep having more.
And by the way, more people have died from pollution than from COVID. So it's not really in perspective.
Well, and it's all connected. So I wish we could go on, but I just have to spend the last minute thanking you for your most amazing film and urging with everything I can, you viewers, to please check it out, show screenings. I promise you, if you watch this film and you didn't like it, let me know. I'll give you your money back. And it's probably free or close to free to watch it. But if you can make a contribution, Renee has paid for this out of her own pocket, and I know what that feels like. And you should be wealthy in every possible way for the gift you've given to mankind and womankind, humanity. It's really that good. And I know I sound hyperbolic, but watch the film and tell me I was exaggerating. I wasn't. So thank you so much, Renee. And where can people find it?
Well, they can host a screening, and I can come on for Q&A. It's normalisover.org. And you can see the screening. There's a new screening coming up with Deep Adaptation with Jim Bendel. So it's interesting that after COVID, people are starting to understand, COVID is sort of getting boring or whatever, and people are starting to realize that the normal is still over. So there's, again, people are attracted to host screenings again, because we must change the way we eat, travel, work, shop, not shop, and recreate biodiversity. That's really the one and only way to go forward.
And now that we are all Zoom savvy, you could probably be at all these screenings, because having you there watching the film with you in that Q&A session is so impactful, and your personal story, and you always get just mobbed with people afterwards who want to meet you like I did. And it really, I'm repeating myself, but it's a must see. Okay, so let's just go see.
And it's independent, I didn't have a boss. I paid for this myself. I didn't have a boss. I didn't have a commissioning editor. I just thought, what the heck? I'm just going to say what I think needs to be said, and that's it.
Well,
maybe that's what you feel.
I've been trying to get a program on CNN or MSNBC for too many years, and they don't get it. They don't want it. and even though they're starting to cover it a little bit, they don't want anyone who really knows too much because that's kind of scary for them. The beauty of doing something online, and this is a plug for Green TV and why we started it, we hope to go 24/7 and be like a GNN, a Green News Network, and there's no shortage of things to talk about, and there's nobody to muzzle us, because the truth is, if we speak the truth, somebody up there in the corporate headquarters, probably everybody would be shaking in their boots. And so I've accepted that now, and now we just need to let the world know that if you really want to know what's going on, we pick up where the news networks finish. They think they're covering it. No, they're just beginning. We pick up where they leave off. So thank you so much for answering the call and creating this lovely film that is so much more than lovely. But be well, Renee, and I hope that a lot of people, because of this interview, will not only see the film, but share it with their friends, as well as share it, which we hope to subscribe to. Yes.
Spread the word.
Spread the word, spread the guilt, spread the whatever, spread the inspiration, spread the information, because we don't have any time to do this quietly or slowly or incrementally.
There's lots of things we can do. You know, we don't have to be despondent. There's so much we can do, and there's something for everyone to do. You can do something in small scale. You can do something large scale. Everyone can do something and contribute.
The sooner everybody does something, the sooner we'll be able to move the mountain, and it needs to be moved, as you said yesterday. So it's critically important that as many people as possible get active, and to, if nothing else, show our kids, even though if we don't solve it all by the time they grow up and are in their own professions and power, that we at least tried, because shame on us if we don't even do that. And this film will be a great education for anyone. Your eco-literacy level will go up, but not just on one issue, all of them, because they're all connected.
Everything is connected.
Of course. And so are we, by the way. We humans are part of nature. Thank you for being an extraordinary human being, Renee Scheltema.
Thank you. You too.
Honored to call you a friend. Be well.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye, Betsy.
That's it for this edition of Green TV. Join us next time. I promise you I will bring you only the best and brightest that I've been honored to meet in my work being an environmental media journalist and advocate. Thanks.